miracles. What else have I got here? New King James, the book. Comic books, which we've been talking about. It doesn't matter which one you pick. They're all going to lead to this same kingdom. He mentioned that it was a kingdom of iron, and he talked about the strength of iron and how iron breaks everything in pieces. Did you know that the Bible teaches a literal 1,000-year reign of Jesus Christ? I mean, the Jesus Christ, the famous one, on the earth, sitting on a throne, ruling over the entire earth for exactly 1,000 years. This was what was in Adolf Hitler's mind. He had a sort of a mockery of he called it his 1,000-year Reich. He and his new order, you didn't know he called it that, did you? When he established his reign in Germany, he referred to it as the New Order, and he had it in his mind that he was going to take over the earth. He was a proto-antichrist, sort of a type, a foreshadowing of the one who is to come. By the way, the fourth kingdom has everything to do with the nature, the identity, and the rule of the Antichrist or the beast coming in the last days. So we'll see how the Bible shows you all this thing together. But it doesn't matter what road you take, doesn't matter what religion or what political ideology you turn to. They are all going to lead into this one last days world empire that Daniel refers to as the fourth kingdom. So we're going to look at symbols in the Bible. We're going to look at prophecies given in the Bible. We're going to look at numbers given in the Bible, particularly the number 4. And I'll show you from the Bible what this number means and how it relates to this fourth kingdom. Why were there 4? And the 3 ones that came before that are all standing upon this fourth kingdom. And the toes, why did Daniel describe it? Why did Nebuchadnezzar have this dream this way? The symbolism, of course, is explained to us in the King James Bible. That's where we're going to get our answers. First thing I want you to do, we're going to go back. Let me put my Bible here, and you get your Bible out. And we're going to kind of keep it simple. In this episode of the Watchman broadcast, we're just going to look at primarily Daniel chapter 2. We're going to start at verse 1 and just kind of move our way down verse by verse, line upon line, precept upon precept, so that we have an understanding and a basis, because I believe God is really shining some light upon what this means in these last days. You know, we were told in the Bible that knowledge shall be increased, and actually that's true. I mean, you've heard me talk about Psalm 139, how it's, David said, in thy book all my members were written, and how that, I believe that's a reference to DNA. I had a pastor call me, never seen any of my videos whatsoever, and he said, I think that's talking about DNA, and I was just amazed that God had showed him that too. It was just really neat to see how God's working these days. But think about this, 100 years ago, DNA, what's that? Deoxyribo what? Nucleic acid, nobody knew what that was. Nobody knew how it was composed. Nobody knew that it had two strands and 4 base pairs and 22 amino acids. Nobody knew those things. Well, now we know it. Now we know it, and we look in the Bible and we see that it's been there the whole time. This book is a book, even though written 4,000, 3,000, 2,000 years ago, this book is a book of present truth, past truth, prophetic truth. So we see what was, we see what is right now, just like in the book of Revelation. He said, John, I'm going to show you what was, what is, and what shall be. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to start, get your Bible out, King James Version, if you want to, because that's what I'm going to use. And that is where the truth of what this fourth kingdom is all about. Right here in this book, Daniel chapter 2. Let's start reading in verse 1. We're going to read verses 1, 2, and then I'm going to go stop right here, and we're going to talk about it, all right? In the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams. Isn't it interesting? Stop right here. I didn't make it out of that. Isn't it interesting that you have 2 words, and they're doubled twice in here? Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams. Keep looking. We're going to show you some more things here. In the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams, wherewith his spirit was troubled, and his sleep brake from him. Then the king commanded to call, and I want you to notice I have these underlined, magicians, astrologers, and the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans, for to show the king his dreams. So they came and stood before the king. Now, again, this really jumps out at me, I think, as being part of the overall pattern of how God speaks. You see, I believe that God is not the author of confusion. He's the author of order. And I believe that when you read the Bible, you can see a pattern. You can see a rhythm, a cadence, as it were, and it makes sense. So much of the Bible and Bible verses that we know are rhythmic. Be sure your sins will find you out. See how easy that is to remember? And it's in perfect rhythm. And God has patterns and orders and cadences like that in the Bible. And you read things, and these are not just a mishmash of miscellaneous words that Daniel was using a little artistic license to write these things out. No. The Bible says that holy men of God spake as they were moved by the Holy Ghost. And so it is by the direction of God, because God is trying to open our eyes to these things and show us these things by these patterns. This is how God does it. And if God did it this way here, you're going to be able to recognize that He's doing the same thing here. So look at what He says. Magicians, astrologers, sorcerers, and Chaldeans. So we have 4. Now, this is going to be important as we move along, because magicians, astrologers, sorcerers, and Chaldeans are part of what Paul talked about in Ephesians 6, that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness, spiritual wickedness in high places. So he calls, let me go back to this verse, he calls the magicians, the astrologers, the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans, these 4. And I want you to see the problem that happens with these 4. Look in verse 3. The king said unto them, I have dreamed a dream. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And my spirit was troubled to know the dream. Then spake the Chaldeans to the king in Syriac, O king, live forever. Tell thy servants the dream, and we will show thee the interpretation. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, the thing is gone from me. If ye will not make known unto me the dream, with the interpretation thereof, you shall be cut in pieces, and your houses shall be made a dunghill. But stop right here. Okay? The king is pretty serious about this, and Nebuchadnezzar was no dummy. This man was no fool. He was probably a military genius, a political one, but he knew you could not pull a fast one on King Nebuchadnezzar, and that's what these guys were trying to do. And they said, "Oh, king, tell us the dream. We will give you the interpretation." You know what they were going to do? They were going to make it up. They were going to make something sound like, "Oh, king, let us tell you what this is." The king said, "No, it's gone from me. And if you're really who you say you are, you're going to tell me what this dream not only was, but what it means. And if you don't, I'm going to cut you in pieces, and I'm going to turn your houses into a dunghill." You know what dung is? It's like animal doo-doo, dog doo-doo. Jezebel was prophesied of Elijah that she would become dung in the field, dog's dung out in the field. You know what happened to her? When she fell out of the window, the dogs came and literally ate her body up. And a few hours later went out in the field.
I have 2 books at my bedside, Lieutenant. The Marine Corps Code of Conduct and the King James Bible.
I hate snakes, Chuck! I hate them! And may the Christian Lord guide my hand against your Roman popery! And they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
We're on a mission from God.
Entitled, you want answers! I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Maybe we should chug on over to Mamby-Pamby land, where maybe we can find some self-confidence for you, you jackwagon!
Coming to you live from his padded cell high atop Bethel Church, the most heralded, the most despised talk show in all of human history. This is the talk show hell hates. This is Pastor Mike Online. My My mom used to do that, trying to get my attention. When I was sitting in church, talking to the kid next to me, my mom would go, and that meant get quiet. And then when she would catch me again, she'd be going, and that meant get up and get over here and sit by me. And I never wanted to do it because I didn't want to disrupt church. You know, if I get up and walk over and sit by her, then I'm disrupting God. I can't do that. Coming to you live from our top secret broadcasting bunker, Pastor Mike here, and I'm online and I'm live with you, and got a lot to talk about today. When have I not had a lot to talk about? Got a lot to talk about today. And I've been holding on to this story for a few days. I think I first saw it Monday or Tuesday, and I wanted to deal with it Tuesday, but we just had other things to talk about, and I wanted to put some things together for you and just kind of present a case of what I think about this new, fantastic, amazing, dynamic, world-changing synthetic DNA that the Scripps Research Institute has come up with, and it's made headlines all over the place. And I'm gonna show you what I learned in a couple of days. No, I don't mean I'm going to show you in a couple of days what I learned. I'm going to show you what I have learned in the last few days. Some of which I learned just today. I have to send myself to college. Every time science makes some new breathtaking, revolutionary discovery, I have to go to Google College and learn how to read some of this stuff and learn what it is and so on. And usually every time I do, I'm going, wait a minute. That's in the Bible. There's something about this that's biblical. There's something about this that's in the Bible. And we're gonna talk about DNA. We're gonna talk about synthetic DNA, what it means, where it's going. Is it in the Bible? Synthetic DNA, is it in the Bible? Or is there something biblical about them adding something, a new man-made hybrid genetic language? Is there something about adding that to man's DNA in the Bible? Of course there is, or I wouldn't be dealing with it. Let me read a couple of stories to kind of head in that direction. NASA, once again, all of a sudden, cuts the feed from their International Space Station high atop the world. NASA cuts live feed, and I have this posted at the facebook.com/Pastor Mike Online Facebook page, which is right there. Go to that. You can click the video. By the way, click it, like it, share it. Click it, like it, share it. That's all you got to do. And what that does, I'll tell you why I do this. Number one, I want you to have the information that I have. Number two, I want you to help disseminate the information that I have. Numero trois, that was a combination of Spanish and French at the same time. I want you to share our ministry that way. This comes from Pastor Mike Online. What is Pastor Mike Online? Well, it's this right here. And by the way, I am sending this feed directly to the Pastor Mike Online Facebook page. And if you are a member of Facebook, all you got to do is go to Pastor Mike Online Facebook.com/Pastor Mike Online and find the live feed and click share and share it on your page, your Facebook page. What that's going to do is, as people are, your friends list, as they're scrolling Facebook, they see this live broadcast on Facebook. Wonder what this is. Click it, find out what it is. They may not like it. They may ask you, what are you listening to this idiot for? They may ask or whatever. But give them the opportunity, all right? When I start the feed, it goes to facebook.com/Pastor Mike Online, and then I go to that page, and then I click share, and I put it on my news feed in Facebook, so that I've got close to 5,000 friends. Some people bail, some people I just kind of shove off, you know, and then I add a few more, but that gives them the opportunity to do likewise, all right? Anyway, NASA cuts live feed from International Space Station after mysterious object appears on camera. A self-styled alien hunter, and this happens often. It's happened before. It's happened several times. All of a sudden, there's a live feed from the International Space Station. I have satellite TV, and we have the NASA live feed station in there somewhere. I haven't watched it in a long time. But every now and then, all of a sudden, an object appears in space, moving around, and NASA doesn't know what it is. So that all of a sudden screen comes up. We're having technical difficulties with our live feed. Please stand by. The self-styled alien hunter believes he has spotted a UFO during a live feed from the International Space Station. By the way, if it is an unidentified object in a live feed and it's flying, then it categorizes as a UFO. Doesn't necessarily mean it's space aliens, doesn't necessarily mean it's a flying saucer-shaped disc or whatever. It just means it's unidentified. Nobody knows what it is. John Craddock from Wolverhampton in the UK claims he has never seen anything like it before. He told the Mirror, "I've been watching it for years, but never seen any UFOs on it before. I was showing a friend how it worked at around 11:30 p.m. You should have been in bed, okay? I'm just saying. But the feed cut out, and 35 seconds after it came back on, this object appeared. And at first, it was like really small, and then it grew bigger, lasting for about 25 seconds. Mr. Craddock claims that it must be alien because nothing human can fly that high. Obviously, he has never been to Colorado. Anyway, is there any more to this? No, just a bunch of comments. Let's read somebody's comments. Here we go. Here's one I like. It was Cher on her way to Venus. That's a good one. The object was United States military. Here's just another comment. The object was United States military, and it's called the TR-3-B. Go to YouTube and type that in. And did you go see about 200 or more videos of this craft? And yes, it can fly in atmosphere or out of atmosphere. Here's let's see here, another comment. Just a meteor. Somebody says space junk. Move along, nothing to see here. Somebody replied, or Pond Boy said, sonoluminescence from NASA's underwater training facility. It's not the first time they've been caught, and I'm sure it won't. That would be somebody who believes the Earth is flat and there's nothing in outer space and nobody. I have satellite TV. My TV signal comes in from a satellite dish aimed at a very specific location in the sky. My video feed at home comes from a satellite in the upper whatever in a geosynchronous orbit, which means it's synchronized, it stays in one place. And that's how I get my TV. And the flat earth people don't believe that. They believe that there are no such things as satellites. They don't believe in any of them. They say that it's all coming from cell towers.
but not satellites. There has never been any satellite ever, because their belief is that once you get like, I don't know, a few thousand feet in the air, you hit like this iron dome or something like that, and you can't get through there. That's not, it's not what the Bible says. It's not. Anyway, here's some more. Sigh. NASA has some of the smartest people in the world. Are you telling me if you want to hide UFOs from their webcams, they can't put it on a 5 or 10 second delay and cut the feed before we see it? This whole NASA is cutting off space alien sightings doesn't pass the truthiness test. That's what somebody said. Why does the headline say that NASA cut the feed after the object appeared, suggesting NASA had something to do or something to hide, when the article itself quotes the guy as saying that the object appeared after the feed came back on? Big Bubba says, I think it's space doo-doo from Howard Wolowitz's space toilet or leftover meatloaf or something like that. Anyway, enough on that. Let's get to this right here. Jerry Seinfeld. There was a Jerry Seinfeld episode where Kramer discovered the government pigmen breeding program. Television circa 1993, somewhere around in there. Okay? I remember it. Yeah, the government's been experimenting with pigmen since the 50s. Well, guess what, Kramer? A hybrid human-pig embryo has been injected into a sow's womb as scientists push the ethical boundaries of science in the hope that they can create life-saving donor organs. Scientists from the, let me move this here. Scientists from the Salk Institute, a biological research organization in California, have taken cells from pigs and people to create an embryo that was then inserted into a female pig. Are you getting this, people? Are you catching this? Are you understanding biblical significance of the time that we live in? Every generation of the church has said, this could be the time when the Lord's coming. And, rightfully so, justifiably so, because we were not told the day or the hour. We were not given the year. We were not told anything like that. We were just told to watch and be ready. And every generation of God's people have been doing exactly that. And they have rightfully and justifiably been looking in the times that they live and pointing a righteous finger in the direction of certain entities like the Vatican and saying, that's the harlot of Babylon and he's the Antichrist. And were they wrong? No. No, not at all. Babylon does not just spring up at the end of days, nor does the spirit of Antichrist. John said in his day there are many Antichrists, plural. And he said the spirit of Antichrist it's already at work. It's already there. You can look throughout history. You can see mystery religions, humans deified as a god, emperors claiming divine rights because they are the son of God or the son of the gods, or they are the God in human form. And every generation of church people, God's people, Bible believers, saved by grace members, have been pointing a righteous finger at certain entities throughout history and saying, this is the spirit of Antichrist right here. Here is the mystery Babylon harlot, whore. And every generation has been expecting then for this Antichrist to take over and for Christ to come. But when we look at what's going on today, when we look at knowledge being increased, when we see that the very nature of Every living thing on this planet is now on the verge of being corrupted. I mean, think, people, think DNA. Where's my sign? Right here. Think DNA. Think Bible. Think about if they can breed and birth one human pig. And let me give you the details here of what this human pig is, all right? In case you think you live next door to him. Or married him. Or gave birth to him, okay? As part of initial experiment, several types of human cells were inserted into pig embryos in petri dishes to determine which cells were the best match for the pig embryo. The human cells which worked best with the pigs were infant ones, which have the potential to develop into all adult cell types known as pluripotent cells. The cells that survived eventually formed a human pig embryo. And people, now, this human pig embryo, this human pig hybrid, it does not necessarily have to be this pig that's born, that walks on two hooves, that is able to eat its swill with a fork, okay, and write its name, okay, with a pen or something like that. It doesn't have to be able to sing opera. All it has to do is contain a portion of DNA that was not given to it by its pig parents. It was artificially injected into its genetic structure so that it literally is a hybrid of two kinds, two species. Let's get our Bibles out. Let's go to Genesis chapter 1. Let's go to the beginning. And rightfully so, because it was the wisest man on the earth, Shlomo. That's the Jewish form of his name. Shlomo, yeah. It's Solomon. Solomon just sounds wiser. Shlomo sounds like he's an idiot. Hey, Shlomo! Okay? Can you pull your britches up today? In Genesis chapter 1, verse 20, and God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. By the way, that is scientifically one of the things that determines life, is it has the ability to move. Okay, independent. It has the ability to move. Let the earth, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. You see, it's an open firmament, not an iron one. And God created great whales. I was taught by my first, second, and third grade teachers to say whales, not whales. You must put the H in there, so you must go whales. And I said, why? And she said, I said, where? Okay. She said, whales. I said, whales. So anyway, God created great whales, and every living creature that moveth, with which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. They were after their kind. They're of their own kinfolk, their own kindred, their own species, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. They were of their own specific kind. They did not belong to another kind, another family, another order. They didn't belong to. They didn't have plant kingdom mixed with animal kingdom. God told the Jews as part of the law certain things they were not to mix together. Number one, they were not to mix gender clothing. If you're a man, wear male clothing. If you're a female, wear female clothing. Do not, as a man, wear female clothing. Do not, as a woman, wear male clothing. And there's varying dispositions and ideas about what constitutes female clothing in today's world and what constitutes male clothing. I'm not able to absolutely segregate it all out, but I can recognize it when I see that butch lesbian woman dressed and appearing like a man with her hair, her walk, her blue jeans, her whatever. When I see it, I'm going, ain't right, ain't right. When I see the men, the flamboyant men, okay, you recognize it. You look at it and go, that ain't right. But he did it after everybody was after their kind. Anyway, what I was getting at, and along with God saying, hey, guy, don't wear the dress. Don't wear the fluffy flower shirt with the lace collar. Don't do that. Along with that, God said, don't sow your field or your vineyard with mingled seed. Don't do that. It's confusion. You've corrupted your vineyard is what you've done. And then he said, don't wear a linen coat and a woolen coat. Why did he say that? He says, I think it has to do with the mixing of the kingdoms. Woolen is animal kingdom. Linen is plant kingdom. They are separate. And clothing has to do with like an outer covering. Like the covering that Christ puts on us as Christians. We're clothed in righteousness. We're clothed with the Son. We have put on Christ. And in this case, I think it refers to God foreseeing the future and seeing that man was going to mix animal and plant together in a way that has never been possible. No, I'm not going to get R rated or anything like that. I'm going to get PG rated. But no guy has ever married a tree. Never did. And especially never, after marrying the tree, raised a family. Never happened. Yet. No man, likewise, has ever... Well, you got to be careful how to say this. And I was going to say no man has ever married a pig, but I know some people. You know what I'm talking about. Swine, sow, pig, oink. No man has ever married a swine and raised a swine family. Yet. And then in Genesis 1, on day 6, that was day 5. Day 6. Think Bible now. Think genetics, think New World Order, think Brave New World, think hybrid, chimeras. And God said, this is verse 24, let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beast of the earth after his kind, and it was so. And God made the beast of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind, and God saw that it was good. And then, see, God made all the beasts first, including the piggies. He made all them, but he made them after their kind. And God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. And God blessed them and said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that creepeth or that moveth upon the earth. God said, I've given, and then he goes on, he said, see all those plants out there? Eat them if you want. Okay? Eat them. Make clothes out of them. Okay? Smoke them if you got them. Make salad out of it. Make smoothies if you want. See those chickens over there and those cattle over there and And see, some people eat horse. That's fine, but if you see all that, I've given it to you for meat. See them great big roaches over there. If you want to eat them, eat them. See the locust? If you want to munch on fried locust, that's your business. God said, I've given it to you for meat. If you want to eat it, eat it. It's yours. You have dominion over it. We're at the top of every food chain that there is. Sharks eat fish. We can eat shark. Okay? Pigs eat everything. We can eat pigs now if we're thankful. And they're sanctified by the word of God in prayer. My point is this. Day 6, God created the species. He created the kinds of animals that live on the earth. But he did it after their kind. 5 times that I've been able to find in the law. At least 5 times. I thought it was 4, and I thought that was significant, but then I found another one. At least 5 times in all of the law of Moses, from Genesis to Deuteronomy, God tells mankind and woman, don't go to the barn for romance. Don't lie with the beast. Don't do it. It's confusion and it's an abomination. So what do we have? We have man and his genetics have been given dominion over all the other genetics of the earth. So what happens now to God's law when you take the man that has dominion over the pig and you mingle him into the pig? What happens to God's law then? In Revelation, the language of your Bible, language of your 1611 Bible, is accurate. It is pinpoint. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. A beast and a man together. That number is 666. You go to the book of Daniel. My. You go to the book of Daniel, chapter 4. And you look in here, and of course Nebuchadnezzar's had another dream, and it's going to spell trouble for him. And here Nebuchadnezzar is described in verse 22 of Daniel 4 as having dominion to the end of the earth. But then in verse 23, it says, hew the tree down and destroy it, and leave the stump of the roots thereof in the earth, even with the band of iron and brass and the tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of heaven. Let his portion be with the beast of the field till 7 times pass over him. And it was prophesied of him that a beast's heart would be given him. Let me find that verse real quick. Yeah, in verse 16. Let his heart be changed from man's, and let a beast's heart be given unto him, and let 7 times pass over him. If you go to 2 Peter, and you in the book of Jude as well, I think. The Bible, in Jude, verse 10, but these speak evil of things which they know not, but what they know naturally as brute beasts. And those things they corrupt themselves. 2 Peter says a very, very, very similar thing about them. These as natural brute beasts, made to be taken and destroyed. And he's referring to false teachers, false prophets, false science. He's referring to all the false things of the world. And he's calling, there is a mingling of human and beast in your Bible. So here the article says, the human cells which work best with the pigs were infant ones, which have the potential to develop into all adult cells, known as pluripotent cells. The cells that survived eventually formed a human pig embryo, which were then injected into female pigs and allowed to develop for around a month. Who believes that? I mean, we only allowed it to go on for a month. After that, we knew that it would be immoral to allow it to be birthed and so on. So we did the right and the proper and the legally regulated thing, Mr. Government. Who believes that? I don't believe it. Lead author of the research told Futurism magazine, this is long enough for us to try to understand how the human and pig cells mix together early on without raising ethical concerns about mature chimeric animals. I don't believe it. I don't believe for a minute that these scientists stopped what they were doing after a month. I don't buy it. You know for a fact that these scientists, there's at least one of them in the group that somehow, some way, whether he had the knowledge of his colleagues or not, allowed it to continue. Or that there is a secondary lab somewhere where they conducted further secret research. We're not even talking about a government lab. We're not even talking about a Pentagon lab, a black operation laboratory somewhere. We're not talking about that. We're talking about these commercial laboratories. And I don't believe for a minute that they stopped doing what they were doing after a month. No way, no how. Folks, it is the brave new world that we live in. The teams are now on the brink of creating a genetic chimera, an organism made up of cells from multiple species DNA, that is, part human, part pig. But why just two? Why not let's make it 3 or 4 or 5? Why not have a chimera that truly is a conglomeration of all kinds of species, including, let's leap over into the other kingdom. Let's mingle plant DNA into the chimera that we're making. We've already done that with rice, genetically modified rice in Kansas, containing wee bits of human DNA in it. We've jumped kingdoms. We've taken from the animal kingdom and put it over into the plant kingdom. Something that God said, don't do it. No mingled seed. There's a creepy picture in here. Okay? I'll just show you that. We got to have some music with that one. See, I told you. There's pigmen. By the way, you know what the name Hoggard means? Hog guard. I'm not making that up. Okay? My ancestors in Nottinghamshire, England, were hog herders, swinards. The British don't say it hoggard. They say it hogod. See, it just sounds better with the British. They say, Mr. Hogod, how are you doing today, Mr. Hogod? Well, now that you said it that way, I'm doing pretty good. Thanks a bunch. Okay? Here we go. More genetic modification. Genetically modified cyborg dragonflies. John, I'm going to have to read the story. Wait, I'm done. Genetically modified cyborg dragonflies. Genetically modified cyborg dragonflies. Heroes in a half shell. Genetically modified cyborg dragonfly that can spy on anyone has been unveiled. Dubbed the Dragonfly Eye, the half instinct. Justin Timberlake. The half insect, half machine is fitted with a fingernail-sized backpack. Powered by a solar panel, remotely controlled by an operator. The Dragonfly can be used for guided pollination, as well as surveillance missions, according to researchers. How was it done? Engineers, number one, CRISPR. So that's all. This is the CRISPR era. Get used to living in an age of monsters, because that's where we are. We're living in a new age of monstrosities, creatures that have never before on earth that we know of seen the light of day. Literally, Genesis 11, whatever man dreams up, whatever he imagines, that's what he's going to do. And remember what we learned Tuesday about imaginations. I had a wonderful time Tuesday during PMO, because even as I was presenting, it was a time of discovery for me. And I don't know if you picked up on that. I didn't really make a big deal about it, but as I'm going through, I'm just going through scriptures in my mind, and I'm just logically laying, and that's what I do even when I study. Sometimes I just sit and think, and I'll have a piece of paper, and I'll just start writing things out. And as I'm writing, the ideas come, because I'm laying out scriptures and scripture ideas in a logical order. If then, if this, then this. And then this says this, so therefore it must be this. And that's kind of how I do things. And as I'm presenting PMO Tuesday, I mean, it's really just, God's just sinking it in that when we think, we're to think Bible. We're to think the words of the Bible, the sentences of the Bible, how the words are arranged, what those words mean, what God said those words mean. We get into trouble when we let our imagination come up with doctrines that are contrary to what the Word of God says. It's like they break Scripture. They violate Scripture. The Bible says it's this way, and then it must be this way. And you just can't get around that. And whenever I have a thought or a question in my mind about, well, maybe, Revelation 13:18 means this, or maybe it means this, maybe it's to be interpreted this way. If what I think does not match what's the words that are written on the page, then I just toss out what I think. I cast it down because it stands in opposition to what God said. And you would be surprised at the number of doctrines that have been established that should have been thrown down because they're really not scriptural. They're not biblical. They were part of the imagination of someone. They should have been tossed out. But people believed it. People bought into it. People fell for it. I'm not saying I'm immune to that either. This is why I tell you, let God be true and every single Michael Hoggard in the world be a liar. Every one of us is a liar. How was this done? It's somebody dreamed this up. Somebody had in their mind a comic book writer or a science fiction writer or a science fiction illustrator or somebody dreamed up dragonflies that are half cyborg. And then it takes the dreamers to dream the image up, and then the architects to figure out how to make it. That's how this world has been going all these years. It's how buildings are built. That's how temples have been erected. It's how symbols have been used. Movies have been written this way. Movies are usually occur in the imagination of a movie producer or a script writer or a story writer. They put it out on a storyboard, and then it's up to the director to put it on film and get it to where you can watch it. I won't get into that. I don't have time. How was it done? Engineers had to develop a way of genetically modifying the nervous system of the dragonfly so it can respond to pulses of light, because pulses of light would represent binary code, binary information. And your DNA, remember, is phosphorus. It is pulses of light. It is angels of God ascending and descending on the ladder. Remember that? To do this, the team gave the insect a gene. It gave the insect a gene. The gene was not available to the insect. They had to give it to the insect, a gene which added light-sensitive proteins called ospins to the neurons. This then allowed the neurons to be activated by the light, sent by an interface in the backpack called an optrode. Now, I want you to think about this. Your brain operates by these neurons firing these electrical pulses of light in your brain. Literally, when you come up with a thought, a light comes on. That's how it works. When the gospel is preached to you, the light came on. And so think of, okay, this is a dragonfly, and you're going, big deal, dragonfly. Why not develop the same biological mechanism so that your brain could both transmit and receive pulses of light from some sort of computer digital interface? Did I just make that up? I seriously doubt it. I don't think DARPA is listening to Pastor Mike Online trying to get good ideas for what to do next. I'm reasonably sure that Defense Agency research projects is already at work on a brain digital interface that will allow the human brain to receive binary information as pulses of light so that our brain can interpret it and receive information quicker than you can make a phone call or send a text message. That's the age, people, that CRISPR has brought to us. Now that we know how to modify any kind of creature's genome easily, accurately, cheaply, effectively, now that we know how to do that, the Pandora's box of what can be done has already been opened. We're not going to go back to the 50s. We're not. No way, no how. You know, I kind of laugh at some of these futuristic, apocalyptic movies because they always display, after the nuclear holocaust, everybody lives in shambles and they wear gloves with no fingers. Have you ever noticed that? All of the future movies of the apocalyptic wasteland, everybody wears gloves with no fingers on them. I don't get that. What is it about living 50 years in the future after a nuclear holocaust? What is it that has destroyed all of the fingers out of hand gloves? I never understood that. But that's how that you watch the Book of Eli. Okay, I kind of like that movie because it's got a Bible in it. The Book of Eli. Look at their gloves. They had no fingers on them. The Postman with, I can't remember. Anyway, but it's one of these futuristic where everybody lives in shambles and they're eating dirt and they have gloves with no fingers on them. Mad Max, gloves with no fingers on them. They always depict the future as it's a mess and everybody eats dirt and they live next to a rock with a piece of tin over it. And I'm telling you, there are enough people in this world. We have advanced far enough with our technology. There are enough people in this world that those that survive will figure out a way to cut some boards and nail them together and make a house, just like we do now. Good grief. Anyway, the neurons then kicked into its usual routine of sending signals to the wings to encourage the insect to fly. The insect could even carry payloads, according to Jesse Wheeler, a senior biomedical engineer at Draper Labs, which collaborated with the Howard Hughes Medical Institute to carry out the Dragonfly program. I'm sure Howard Hughes would be tickled to death that he has like cyborg robot dragonflies flying around his germ-free apartment. I'm sure he'd just be tickled to death. So the next time you see a dragonfly, well, that just could be a little spy dragonfly looking in to your house or your flat or your apartment from the government. And there are people out there who don't need this information because they already think that the government watches and listens and can see into their house. And we all know that the government would never do that. We all know that, don't we? All right, now, get ready. And let me open up a new... have a spot of tea. We're going to be cueing the music on this one pretty heavily. Life as we know it. Scientists engineer first semi-synthetic organism with 3 base pair DNA. Now, what you're seeing on the screen says new organisms have been formed using the first ever 6-letter genetic code. Let me explain that. 3 base pairs and 6-letter genetic code, it's the same thing. If it's 3 pairs, if I say, I have 3 pairs of shoes, Sally, how many do I have? 6. Very good, Sally. So 3 pairs and 6 are this, it's the same, you get it. Scientists have engineered the first ever semi-synthetic organism by breeding E. coli bacteria with an expanded 6-letter genetic code. Okay? Now, let's see here. I thought I had one of these articles that I printed out and made notes on them, and I probably... Did I give it away? No, here it is. Here it is. Let me read this to you. While every living thing on Earth is formed according to a DNA code made up of 4 bases. And you've heard me talk about that. By the new Watchman broadcast, it's going to be coming out Sunday, we hope. I recorded it yesterday. And it kind of goes into a little bit more detail about how DNA... You're going to like this one. Before the DNA can be transcribed, copied to a new cell, or a portion of it transcripted so that, you know, a protein can be produced or something like that. The book, it has to be, you know, the double helix. I got my DNA over here. Hang on. Hang on. Okay. The double helix here. The base pairs, adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine, the hydrogen bonds are broken. There's a neat thing about these hydrogen bonds. But these bonds are broken, and this is split apart, okay? Now, and once it's split apart, it's like unrolling the scroll. It's like opening the book and reading. It's like you reading your Bible, okay? Before, and I've pretty much destroyed this, but before it can be read, before the book can be read and the things in it produced, something has to go before the RNA polymerase that reads it and transcribes it. Something has to go before that and unwind it. It's a separate function. I was thinking that it was the same machine, RNA polymerase, but it's not. It's a completely separate machine called isomerase, DNA isomerase, I think is what it's called. I don't have my notes in front of me. But I figured out what it was, because Jesus is the Word here. And before the Word can do anything, something has to go before the Word and prepare the way. And John the Baptist was that Word, or what went before Jesus to prepare the way. And the Bible specifically says that he went and made the crooked things straight. And that's exactly what has to happen in your DNA for anything to work. It's like the neatest thing that you'll get this week. Okay? And that's going to come out Sunday, if we can keep everybody healthy between now and then. But anyway, the four letters, adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine. Four gospels. Think about it. Think about the two rungs of the ladder joined together by the four. That's the Old Testament, New Testament, and the four gospels. That's life. That's it right there. That's how God made it. Now man is God. Playing the part of God in this film is man. And these modified E. coli bacteria carry an entirely new type of DNA with two additional DNA bases, X and Y, nestled in their genetic code. The team, led by Floyd Romsberg from the Scripps Research Institute in California, engineered synthetic nucleotides. Nucleotides is the other word for bases. Like adenine is a nucleotide. Thymine is a nucleotide. Now, X and Y are brand new nucleotides that have been created by the hands of man. God, these do not occur naturally anywhere in our known universe. They were created specifically by man's hands. He fashioned them. He came up with the formula. He, when they didn't work right at first, then man went and reshaped them in order to get them right. I'm going to explain that. Listen to how the articles explain this. Engineered the synthetic nucleotides, molecules that serve as the building blocks of DNA and RNA, to create an additional pair. So instead of two pairs, there's now three pairs. Instead of two, think of Old Testament, New Testament. Instead of two, now there's three. Joe Smith, in the early 1800s, was the pioneer of the genetic evolution revolution, in that he comes out with an addition to the two testaments of the King James Bible. His Book of Mormon has right on the front of it another testament of Jesus Christ. It is in addition to the other two testaments. Cue the music. We need some music on that. Now we have the world's first semi-synthetic organism with a genetic code made up of two natural base pairs. Here we go. Listen to the wording. I didn't write this. This is the article. It comes out from Scripps Research Institute. Natural base pairs made up of two natural base pairs and an additional alien base pair. Romsberg and his team suspect that this is just the beginning for this new form of life. Never before seen on this planet. That makes it, at its very definition, alien. It is alien DNA. It was not natural here. Was not growing in a cave somewhere. Did not come from a broccoli spore. Didn't come from a camel sneeze. It doesn't belong on this planet. Man made it with his hands from his imagination. With virtually unrestricted ability to maintain increased information, the optimized semi-synthetic organism now provides a suitable platform to create organisms with wholly unnatural attributes and traits not found elsewhere in nature, the researchers report. The semi-synthetic organism constitutes a stable form of semi-synthetic life and lays the foundation for efforts to impart life with new forms and functions. Good grief, we got to have like music like on every sentence here. Talk about conspiracy stuff. Conspiracy theories. I mean, good grief. This is like everything that every secret society has been talking about. This is it right here. Now, I had to go to college. I had to go to Google University to try to understand how this works, because I've spent years trying to understand how the base pairs, and I explained. Oh, you're gonna love this, Watchman. You're gonna love it when I explain hydrogen bonding to you, the thing that makes adenine stick to thymine. Know what it is? Okay? It's that little thing called love. It is. Okay? Because it's like me and Sweetie Pie. Okay? I'm a man. She's a woman. She is an opposite of me. I paint the house white. She now wants to go with colors in the dining room and the living room. Okay? I would never. She knows better than to ask me, pick out some colors, honey. I'll say, well, there's white, there's natural white, there's antique white, there's classic white, there's white. Okay? Which white do you want? No, she's my opposite. And I'm positive and she's negative. Okay? And you know, magnets, the positive always attracts to the negative, and vice versa. And when the base pairs come together, the thymine and the adenine, thymine would have a hydrogen molecule on it that's positively charged. And it will attach to like a negatively charged oxygen molecule on the adenine, and they're stuck together. They, get ready, I'm going to use a Bible word. They cleave. They cleave to one another. Okay? That which God hath joined together, let not man put asunder. Isn't that beautiful? That's how it works. And I'm looking at what you're looking. I got to point this way. I'm looking at what you're looking on the screen, but I'm not looking at the screen. I'm looking at the opposite wall. I got to turn this way. And I'm going, if adenine and thymine always go together and they're bonded by electrical static, positive and negative, and guanine and cytosine the same thing. How then does the X and the Y work with that? How do they stick to that? Okay? They really don't. They really don't. This is from what I could understand. And this is just 2 days of trying to figure this stuff out. Okay, but I think I got it today. In bacteria such as E. coli, bacteria can have, and I want you to see my mouse here. Bacteria can have like DNA, like a strand, like kind of like you and I have. But they also have it in what's called a plasmid. And a plasmid is like a circular form of DNA. It's a circle, not necessarily the stranded what we have. And I'm not exactly sure how it works, but they got the X and the Y to stick somehow, some way in as an addition to the adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine combination in this plasmid. They got it to just kind of hang on to that is what they did. And they call it, once they were able to do it, they realized that it leads to genome evolution, but not just random chance evolution like they say has been happening for, a billion years. Genome evolution in this case is directed solely by the will of man. And you read in your Bible how that we are born again not by the will of man, but by the will of God. We let God's natural process take place. Man is on the verge of refusing God's version of born again by the will of God. Now man is going to choose a new birth by his own will, by his own hands, his own works, and not by God doing it. Thus, this book just came out a few months ago called Evolving Ourselves. How unnatural remember, this is unnatural base pairs. Unnatural nucleotides. They're found in nature. Nature did not produce them. They're not part of the natural thing. There isn't a living organism anywhere on the earth that naturally contains the X and the Y nucleotide base pair. How unnatural selection and non-random mutation are changing life on Earth. Non-random means that nature didn't just spin a wheel hoping that cows come out with 4 legs. Now man is determining mutations on purpose by his own will. And again, every time I think this through, every time I talk about it like I'm doing today, it's becoming more and more obvious to me how much of this is in violation with the Word of God and actually prophesied. Whereas you and I, born again by the will of God, mankind is about to have an evolution revolution, a new birth. He's going to augment, he's going to be augmented, he's going to be changed, but he's not going to be changed by God. He's going to be changed by man. Man is going to change man by the will of man, not by the will of God. And that's the choice that man is making right now. You and I, we've already made our choice. We've already made, I'm not going to make another decision here one of these days to not serve Christ, to not be part of his kingdom. I'm in. I have no doubt about it whatsoever. Well, I won't say no doubt whatsoever. Every now and then, you kind of had those bad days where you're going, I don't know if I'm saved or not. You know what I'm talking about. But I choose my second birth, by the will of God, not by the will of men. And we are now, folks, 2017 is here. The revolution has begun. Man, you will see. If you are allowed to live the next year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, I don't know, you will see the CRISPR revolution, the evolution revolution taking place in front of your eyes. This is only the beginning. Right here. Over the next couple of years, the team devised 3 methods to engineer a new version of the E. coli. Bacteria that would hold on to their new base pair indefinitely, allowing them to live normal lives. See, they started this in 2014. I don't know if you remember that. I think I may have touched on it on a PMO. How they had come up with this new X and Y thing. But when they started it in 2014, they couldn't get it to work right. Okay? They were having problems. And keep in mind, 2014, that was just 2 years ago. 2014 really was, the CRISPR thing hadn't really just jumped in yet, but it was going to. Now, 2.5 years later, I guess, we're in the CRISPR days. And the problems that they had in 2014, they don't have those problems anymore. In 2014, they got the X and the Y, but they couldn't get the E. coli to reproduce those bases. The E. coli would reproduce adenine, thymine, guanine, cytosine because they were natural to it. But when they would introduce the X and the Y, they couldn't get the E. coli when it reproduced into another little baby E. coli. Baby E. coli, after baby E. coli had a baby E. coli, which only takes 8 hours, something like that. After the 3rd and 4th generation, they didn't see X and Y anymore. They could stick it in. They couldn't keep it in. Okay? So, the first step was to build a better version of a tool called a nucleotide transporter. Need a bigger car. A more effective car. Which transports pieces of the synthetic base pair into the bacteria's DNA and inserts it into the right place in the genetic code. That's what the plasmid is for. It's a circle. Think about what witches do. Where they do it. Am I on to something here? I don't know. Could be. Think about Mark Batterson's The Circle Drawer. How you got to draw a circle and get in it and then demand that God do everything your way. Okay? There may be a connection here. But anyway, the transporter was used in the 2014 study, but it made the semi-synthetic organism very sick, explains one of the team, York Zhang. Here's why. E. coli and other bacteria like it are really good at certain things. In fact, I found out this plasmid DNA that these bacteria have, they contain information that helps the bacteria know who its enemies are, know what belongs and doesn't belong in the bacteria's body. And so the E. coli bacteria have this alien, unnatural nucleotides invading its system. What do you think the E. coli did when it first encountered the X and the Y? The same thing that happened to me when I had this Streptococcus bacteria invading my body. My body went into overtime work trying to destroy the Streptococcus bacteria that had invaded my body. My white blood cells my bone marrow was producing white blood cells like crazy, like Hershey's produces chocolate. And to this day, this is why I have an excess of mucus and other things that I am trying to get out of my body It's because of the overload of white blood cells. When the white blood cells detected the presence of the streptococcus bacteria, they said, we got to kill this thing. And so that's why you get sick and your body heats up and you don't feel good and you want to lay down and you're tired, you don't have any energy. It's because your body is trying to fight something and it's putting all the resources to work for that one thing. Well, the E. coli bacteria were designed by God. And God has designed his creation with a natural ability. Now, it's a limited ability. And people, you got to be careful. You read some of these websites, watch some of these YouTube videos, and there's some companies out there that are trying to sell you snake oil that will make you think that every disease known to man, God has enabled your body to fight it off and kill it, and that you really shouldn't ever be sick. It's not true. It's not true. Your body has an ability to deal with limited sicknesses. Limited ability. So just be careful with that, all right? And that's all I'm going to say. If you like natural remedies, do the natural remedies, okay? And if you ever find one that you think absolutely works, let my wife know, okay? I mean, she was putting all kinds of things in me last week. Anyway, God has designed the E. coli bacteria with a self-defense mechanism. And here, evil man does what evil man does. Evil man likes to inject things where they don't belong, right? Am I right? Am I right? Mankind likes to take things that are clean and make them unclean. Mankind likes to take things that are incorrupt and corrupt them. That's what we do. And we've gotten really good at it. So mankind developed two unnatural alien base pairs and injected them into E. coli. And the E. coli did what E. coli was supposed to do. It recognized the X and the Y as alien invaders and began the process of trying to kill it before it killed the organism. That's why in the 2014 study, it made the E. coli very sick. This is Bible I'm talking here, okay? Wait till you see it. Once they'd altered the transporter to be less toxic. So what they did was they knew that they had a problem with the Y base pair. They had a problem with it. So they said, the Elodium Q32 explosive space modulator was supposed to work and it didn't work. So they decided to fix, instead of not do what they were doing to the poor E. coli bacteria, they decided to fix Y. Y doesn't work. So let's fix Y. Let's reshape Y. Let's go back to the drawing board. Let's use our imagination. Let's try to find out why, and let's take the E. coli bacteria's own DNA and make it work for us and not against us. So what they did was they changed the molecule they'd originally used to make the Y base and found that it could be more easily recognized by enzymes in the bacteria that synthesize DNA molecules during DNA replication. Finally, the team used the revolutionary gene editing tool CRISPR-Cas9 to engineer E. coli that don't register the X and Y molecules as a foreign invader. In other words, when God wrote E. coli, God wrote its DNA and said, if you ever encounter something called X and Y, kill it. Kill it. Don't let it in. It's dangerous. It's just another way to breach into you so that a worse invasion can take place. That's how God wrote the DNA of E. coli. E. coli, fish, dogs, cats, wheat, apples, cattle, and humans. God wrote our DNA to produce white blood cells that have a map and a diagram of what's bad and what's not. Now, I want you to think about this. I want you to think about it. When someone has an organ transplant, what is it that the medical team that's going to do the transplant, what do they have to do with the recipient before they can receive the organ? Kidney, liver, heart, lung, whatever it is. What do they have to do before they can receive it? They have to dope them up on drugs that will not allow their immune system to reject the organ as something dangerous that's been inserted into the body. And remember, are you with me here? Do you remember what we got to think Bible here? What is your body? It's the temple. And God had laws in his word where he said, there are certain things that I will not allow in the temple. Certain animals, certain plants, pigs, humans. See, why is it that an animal on the unclean list is the animal that we mixed humans with? They took the human DNA, which was clean, inserted it into the pig, which is unclean. When you take something that's clean and throw it into something that's unclean, what happens to the clean thing? Does it clean the unclean stuff? No. It dirties the clean thing. When you add the unclean DNA of a human into the clean DNA of a human into the unclean DNA of a pig, you've just defiled the human. You haven't improved the pig. You defiled the human. God said there were certain things that he would not allow into his tabernacle, his temple. How did he put it in the scriptures? He called it a blemish. Think about your face. Think face. You ever had a blemish on your face? Sure you have. What was it? It was a bunch of white blood cells that were invading a dirt or some bacteria that got into the pore of your skin because your skin's oily and the pores open up and they got dirt in it when they closed back and the white blood cells came and invaded and they built up and you have a zit, a blemish. Any kind of infection on an animal shows up usually as a blemish. Some sort of sore with white blood cells oozing out of it called pus. And there was a priest standing at the door of the tabernacle that he was to take animals in, but he was to examine them first. And if they had a blemish, it meant that this is a diseased animal. And how dare you think that you can go out, live like a dog, sin all you want to, and then come in with your half-dead, rotting carcass of a lamb into the holy sanctuary of God, offer that as a sacrifice, and think God's going to pat you on the back. Boy, there's got to be a 21st century church equivalent to that. Can I get some people to say amen to that? The lamb for Passover was to be without blemish. The male of the first year, you should, and why? Because it was a representation of Christ. Leviticus chapter 1. Levitical law was all about how the animal sacrifices were to be done. What was to be allowed in the tabernacle? Because it was all, there's 27 chapters in Leviticus, 27 books in the New Testament. What does it tell you? It's a foreshadow. Even numerically, it tells you that. Speak unto the children of Israel and say unto them, if any man of you bring an offering unto the Lord, ye shall bring your